to ExploreTraveler's podcast number 9. I'm joined with John and Elijah, and today we want to talk about scuba diving, how they learned scuba diving, and some of the exciting things they did growing up scuba diving around Asia. So, first let's start with Elijah. So, tell us about how you learned to scuba dive and where you did it.
Um, so whenever we started down at the bottom of Taiwan. It was really interesting because whenever you actually started getting into the water, because, they don't exactly speak English, so you're just there thinking, what are they talking about? But once you're under the water, it's almost like another language. So you start talking to them in your
it's much easier.
sign language.
So you're referring to the underwater signals that you're required to learn to get your scuba diving license.
Yeah. They make you watch about three movies explaining to you some of the basic drills and procedures.
Yeah, but doing it is a lot different. A lot harder, actually.
Right, so the movies and the written material is just to get you introduced, and then you have to have the hands-on portion,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you think about learning the underwater scuba diving language?
Oh, actually, it was pretty fun and very interesting, actually. They had some pretty interesting hand signals that I kind of struggled to learn at first, but later on it just came naturally.
Well, some of them, like being out of air, seems kind of natural.
Yeah.
So, Elijah, you were the youngest. You originally got licensed at 10 years old.
I
So
think
you
it was
were
younger.
you were a junior paddy diver for a couple years before you were risen up to normal open water diver.
Yeah.
So you were like a fish.
I was like a minnow.
So I mean, they spoke Mandarin and what was the other language in South Taiwan?
Taiwanese.
Taiwanese. That's right. And so our instructor, we were very fortunate. He could speak some English. It was limited, but nobody else in the building spoke English at all. But it didn't seem to matter. We were able to get our license, do several dives, and it was quite an enjoyable experience. So I think the point we're trying to get across is everybody should consider, if they're going to go to Taiwan or Philippines, if they find a PADI open water diver instructor, they're pretty good, and it's pretty universal whether you're in the U.S. or overseas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what did you guys think of your first boat diving experience there in the Philippines?
Well, for me, it was kind of exhilarating because it's almost like your first time out in like a new area, and you're like, I'm gonna see some really cool stuff, and I just know it. And then you dive in, and you're just like, oh man, this is already real cool.
You mean when you first jumped off the boat, right?
Yeah.
How heavy is it?
Oh, that stuff is like a good 30, 35 pounds. So whenever you're this really tiny person at first who doesn't have much muscle, it's like, oh.
Right.
Sometimes they make you do a back dive, so it's easier.
I think you dove that deep trench there in the Philippines when you were 11, right?
Yeah.
So they have a cliff, and as you go down the cliff, you can see stuff on the surface, different animals and different depths. It's like a whole ecology. It's a whole other world down in there.
Yeah. All the coral, all the life, it's pretty cool.
What'd you think about jumping into the water for the first time?
I was a little bit scared at first, but I managed to do it.
Mama did it too.
I don't know, it was okay.
Everybody seemed to have a pretty exciting time.
Would you like to know my story on it? First time I jumped from the boat in the Philippine waters, and this is what I did. I had all that heavy equipment on, all those. Everyone helped me get on this super, super heavy equipment. Now, in my mind, I couldn't envision how all that heavy equipment could float. So I imagined going to the bottom of the ocean real fast. So I asked the Lord to forgive me of all my sins because I was sure I was either going to die or I was going to make it and it was going to be all right because I knew how to breathe through the machine. But I just pictured myself going straight to the bottom real fast. And so I did it, closed my eyes, jumped, and believe it or not, I floated. And it was pretty fun after that. But it was so pretty.
You didn't know I was holding all your gear behind you, so you didn't feel the weight.
It's a good thing I was already scared enough. I'm glad you did. Thanks.
I think one of the most interesting
I'm
parts
glad you survived.
Yeah, me too.
I think one of the most interesting parts of going down is once you get to a certain feet down, the temperature in the water just drastically changes. It goes from being semi-warm to being freezing cold.
It's pretty strange, huh? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know how hot it is. In the U.S., we use Fahrenheit, but it was 100 degrees, 100% humidity. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
It was much cooler whenever you got about 30 feet down, though. Whenever you got, there was like this real deep trench that went on forever, and they didn't want you to go down it. Remember that deep trench?
Well, we were only allowed to go down so far.
That area, it was real cool.
All right. There's a lot of different anemones and all kinds of different creatures down there. What was your scariest part of it, Elijah? What scared you about it for the when you first started doing it?
Taking off your BCD or breather and thinking, man, I've got to throw this back behind me, and then I gotta slowly breathe out air so that my rib cage doesn't, so that my lungs don't collapse.
Right.
I had to put it back in my mouth, and I have to do that really calm
Oh, you mean for your test?
for the actual test.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I just swam for my life. I mean, yeah, that was
So,
exciting.
because I'm slightly plump these days, the hardest thing was taking off my weights because it appears that body fat wants you to float to the surface, which is not safe, right? Because I'm deep underwater. You're supposed to regulate your ascent back to the surface.
So that your tank
I had people holding my feet
that.
so I didn't float up.
Yeah, we were all just holding you down.
Right. So
He
that,
needed to give you some more weights.
well, I had to take them off for the test and
Yeah,
then
you
put
were
them back
floating.
on.
I was like, come back down.
Yeah.
I swam straight to the bottom. I was sitting on the very bottom of the ocean floor watching all you guys at the top.
Yeah, you got some
Trying
cool
to pull
photos.
you down.
Yeah.
It was a pretty neat.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of extra weight. I need a special BCD of extra weights in it.
You know what I did wrong? I wasn't checking my oxygen. And I came up and I didn't realize that I didn't have enough oxygen to breathe. And whenever I come up out of the water, I was so dizzy that it threw me right into a headache. And
Yeah, we remember.
Yeah, that. We
Yeah,
remember.
it didn't make me feel very good either. But anyway, you don't realize that you're missing the oxygen. And so watching your gauges is real important.
What about going scuba diving, and then they took us to that one remote island. I think this was what trip? When we were in Cebu. Remember they took us to off the coast to another island. We had a barbecue. That was a nice break.
Oh, that was fun. It was super hot.
It was like being on Fantasy Island.
Yes, it's so beautiful. It was
Lobsters,
unrealistic.
fish, crab, shrimp.
The
I like
mango was
shrimp.
really good there.
It was great. I felt really spoiled. Now I'm getting hungry again. And I'm probably supposed to be on a diet, so it's not a good idea to be talking about food.
Yeah.
You know, it was such an unbelievably beautiful area, and the water was so blue. But you know what was the hardest part? Is you're in a boat, and it's like 110 to 20 degrees. Like 120 degrees. I swear it was 120 degrees. Well, anyway, it's so hot. And then you have to put on this full bodysuit, and you're driving around for the perfect spot to go scuba diving. Did anybody else but me get extremely hot in that full bodysuit?
Oh, it was pretty hot.
It's pretty hot, but once you got in the water, it was okay.
Yeah.
Yes, but waiting until you got in the water.
The sunburns that you can get on the boat are ridiculous.
But we did pretty good because we kept ourselves covered. We're all pretty white, so
Yes.
we
Especially
were pretty
me.
careful.
That time I wasn't afraid to jump in the water. Get in the water and cool down.
So if you got a family and you want to go scuba diving, and you know you don't have the time to do it in the U.S. before you go, you could do it overseas. If we can do it in Chinese, you can do anything. A lot of these places in the Philippines and Indonesia, there's high skilled PADI divers, and they'll teach you everything you need to do, and they speak English. There's other places that don't. I mean, granted, if you go to the mainland China, maybe it's a little more difficult, some of those places, but they'll work with you. And the diving languages and sign signals, that's universal. And PADI has a universal skill set that carries over from place to place. I know people who live in Singapore, they've dived all over Asia, never had any problems. So it's something for you to consider for your next family vacation. It's a fun time.
Yeah.
Let's go scuba diving.
Yes.
I recommend it.
How about the Chinese word for thank you?
谢谢.
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 So 谢谢, everyone. And before we close, let's do a quick shout out to one of our biggest supporters at crowdify.club. We thank Michael and Eureka for helping us and to share all of our content and things across social media. And to end it, we'll go to our main sponsor, which is ExploreTraveler. Thank you, everyone, and go scuba diving.
This program is powered by ExploreTraveler.com, bringing the wonders of the world to your home and discover wonderful people all over the world. Visit us now at ExploreTraveler.com.